Now let's talk about farming and pastoralism. As I mentioned earlier, the Dinga people are farmers and they are pastoralists at the same time, meaning they do grow farm produce and they keep cattle, goats, and sheep. Let's talk about this. Let's start with farming. The Dinga farm on both the mountains and the lowland to produce their different types of food. Mostly, the lowland can accommodate variety of plants and can also be favorable condition for certain plants such as cassava, groundnut, sesame, and where up the hill the only favorable type of crops that can be grown up the mountains or the hills are the sorghums, maize, and maybe Irish sweet potatoes. Others are not doing very well because due to cold climate condition up the mountains, and so not a lot of farm produce are being planted up the hills. So if you come to the Dinga land, the main diet of the Dinga people is coming from maize or corns, sorghum, which are always suitable for mountain and hill uh, conditions, climatic conditions. They grow a lot of these up the hills, but also at the same time, maize do very well, and the sorghums also do very well on the in the lowlands. They don't have a problem with that. Maize, millets, sorghum, cassava, sweet potatoes, groundnut, sesame, and other varieties of crops are very commonly found on the lowland side of the land. And the Dinga people do grow this for their livelihood. And it is not surprising enough to go to the lowland and finding all this variety of foods are available in the lowland societies of the Dinga people. The Dinga people are also beekeepers because they love honey. Honey is the most essential thing in the Didinga diet. So, like I said earlier, the Didinga people love corn. Okay, not the modern corns that we see a lot. Maybe sweet corns that people consume while they're raw. While they're very at the tender stage. But the Dinga people allow their corn. They can eat at this stage as well by roasting it and eat it, but in most cases they'll allow these corns to mature enough to the point they can dry and produce a lot of dry corns like the one we use for popcorns and maybe the ones we use for other activities such as producing flour. So the Dinga mostly will use this to the point where they kind of make sure it's dried up so they can grind and produce flour using that corn. The sorghum are mainly used for either food consumption or used for alcohol beverages. They will try to brew their own local beer using the sorghum most of the time. So also the Dinga do grow millet. Millet is this kind of crop that also produces small grains. It will be taken out of these crops and then stored in their storage, and this will be ground into flour and they use that as well to cook their own food. Also the Dinga people do grow cassavas. Cassava are very much grown in the lowland. There's some part of the hills in the Dinga land that also can be used to grow cassava. They do well, but not in the very extreme cold areas like Nagichot. Nagichot is another place where farming take place for a variety of crops, but in mostly lowland favors cassava. And also there's sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are grown in the Dinga land using heap soil like this. You'll see the soil are being heaped like that in large space of land, and then they will start growing, and then the vines will kind of run over the whole entire soil heap, and from this heap the tubers will be going inside the soil, and then once they are ready mature they will be dug out and then of course prepared for consumption. Then you will come across this is you have a vegetable like pumpkins. Both leaves and the actual pumpkin fruit will be eaten by the Didinga people. They use the leaves as vegetables, and this is very common also in Didinga land. You'll find this in Didinga land. And of course, Didinga do love beans. They grow a lot of beans, mostly in upland, up the hills, mountain there because of the sufficient rainfalls. They grow a lot of beans up the hills. But also the beans can be grown in the lowland as well. They have no problem. The variety that you see here is typical to the Didinga people. They have this kind of variety, and it's very common to find this. Also, don't be mistaken, Didinga people have tomatoes. Some tomatoes are actually volunteer tomatoes. They grow in the wild and you can find them anywhere without anybody even planting them. Okay, Didinga also do eat kales. There's a variety of kales, different types of, they normally call them collards, and these are kales, very common in Didinga land. You find these also there. And of course, cabbage is also very available, and it's available everywhere. People are growing this nowadays, and they have it really commonly everywhere. It's part of their diet. Also, the sesame seed or the sesame seed that we normally find them spread on the bun of the McDonald's burger or KFC burger or any other burgers. Sesame plants look like this. The seeds that you see on this little tree here will be dried up, and then the seeds will be shaken off as sesames, and these are the one that I use always to spread on the bun of the burger. And for those who don't know, who have never seen a plant, this is a sesame plant. Okay, that brought us to the end of our episode for the Dinga type of food and what they farm mostly. And I hope this has been very much informative and that you learned something out of this. I want to see you in the next video, and thank you for viewing this one. See you in the next video.